We start in Washington, where Democrats are gearing up for a final vote on President Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic aid package. Now, the House is planning to take up the bill sometime tomorrow. Then, once it's approved, Biden can sign it into law just before jobless benefits expire this weekend. So on the cusp of a major legislative victory, the Biden administration is now looking ahead to its next stimulus package, which will face many more obstacles, partly because of how ambitious it is. Biden wants to address infrastructure, climate, healthcare, inequality, and more in the next go-round. So let's bring in Bloomberg congressional reporter Laura Davison, who joins us by phone. Laura, Democrats are passing this $1.9 trillion monster bill with their 50 votes and, of course, Kamala Harris's tiebreaker vote, so just barely. There is zero support from Republicans right now, but the White House will not be able to rely on 51 votes from Democrats to pass the next stimulus, will they?
Well, it really depends on what they want to do. They do have another go-round at this reconciliation process. It's what they used with this bill. However, it makes it really tricky once you start looking at climate, at infrastructure, at healthcare, because when you use reconciliation, everything has to relate directly to the budget. So to pass things like tax increases, to look at some, energy tax credits, that you could easily do through reconciliation. But if they want to do this big, ambitious, multi-trillion-dollar plan like they're talking about, they're likely going to need to get some Republicans on board. That gets really, really tricky because they don't just need one Republican. It's not just getting Mitt Romney. It's getting 10 total. And that will involve a really big negotiation process that will take months.
I didn't realize that they could do more just through budget reconciliation. I mean, how many times can they do that? Is it unlimited?
It's not unlimited. They're basically limited to once per fiscal year. So because the Republicans didn't use it while Trump was still in the office, they had one reconciliation bill that they've used up, and they have one more on the docket if they choose to use it going into the spring and summer.
Okay, got it now. So if they go forward with a traditional legislation approach, how much of the next package already contains some bipartisan initiatives? And I ask this because I think back to Donald Trump's White House and how they used to hold Infrastructure Week seemingly every month. There's got to be something in Biden's plan, which he calls Build Back Better, that Republicans can get behind.
So there's a lot of things that have bipartisan support, looking at domestic manufacturing and how do you beef that up, looking at semiconductor chips, looking at jobs training programs. This is all stuff that Republicans and Democrats broadly agree needs to happen. The issue, and this is where it gets really tricky, is how do you pay for it, or do you pay for it at all? And so you have moderates in the center, people like Joe Manchin, but also Rob Portman of Ohio, who's saying, look, we can't add all this money to the deficit. We have to find a way to pay for this. And Republicans are saying, basically, we don't want to expand the size of government. And Democrats are saying, let's raise the corporate tax rate. Let's raise taxes on capital gains, which is an anathema to Republicans. So really, they can't agree on kind of the dollars and cents side, even if they can agree on kind of policy things that theoretically should happen.
Yeah, so we come back to the traditional points of contention between Republicans and Democrats. I also wonder if the White House's play to pass this bill strictly along partisan lines through budget reconciliation has really poisoned the well for any kind of Republican support, no matter how aligned Republican interests may be with Democrats on some of these specific measures.
Republicans are kind of mixed on that. Some will say that they wish they had more outreach from the Biden administration on this specific bill. Others are, like Todd Young, who are specifically looking at, the semiconductor chips issue, looking at, kind of a China bill. He's, really taking a bipartisan approach. So it really depends on which Republican you talk to. Democrats are saying right now, we want to work with Republicans. We want this to be bipartisan. Though, like we saw with the last bill, they wanted it to be bipartisan until it got hard. And then they decided, let's just do a go it alone, fuse reconciliation, and we can then have the bill be everything we want it to be, and we don't have to concede a lot of it to Republican demands.
Yeah, leading a lot of people to accuse Democrats of paying a lot of lip service but not actually following through. Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, will once again be someone to watch for the next go-round, whether it's a budget reconciliation or traditional legislation. As much as he can play spoiler, how much can we maybe look to him to be a bridge builder to the Republicans?
He really fancies himself someone who is a bipartisan member of the Senate. He is a Democrat, but from a super Republican state. So he really knows how to speak the language to both sides and views himself as a maverick and kind of someone who goes his own route. The thing really to watch for here is do the House and Senate approve these things called earmarks. And this is basically sort of member-directed spending. They were banned about 10 years ago. And a lot of people credit the banning of earmarks as something that's really slowed down the legislative wheels in Washington. If you were able to put something in, a specific project for someone's state or district, that even if they didn't like the broader bill, it had something that was really important for them in it, and so they would vote for it. That's something that Democrats are talking about doing, and they're hoping that that will be a way that they can bring Joe Manchin as well as, some Republicans on board to vote for a bill.
Got it. Laura Davidson, thank you so much explaining the ways that Washington works to us, joining us from D.C.